the First Row Sports Show. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook.
Once again to the sideline. Batted up. Oh, God! Stokely down the sideline. Can they catch him?
With your host, Darnell Duff.
Oh, Wade, what a play!
Welcome back. It's the First Row Sports Show, May 11th, Friday, May 11th, one day away, the Winnipeg Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights. Who would have thought to start the season it would be the Vegas Golden Knights and the Winnipeg Jets in the Western Conference Final? Not me. I don't even care if you're a big-time Winnipeg Jets fan. If you would have assumed this would have been the conference final, if you were a betting man and you bet Winnipeg and Vegas in the conference final in Vegas at the start of the season, you would have been rich. Vegas, maybe not so rich. If Vegas goes on to win this series and they go on to win the Stanley Cup, oh boy, Vegas bookies will be losing big time money. A franchise that, well, wasn't a thing before this year. Expansion. The Winnipeg Jets, they've never been in the third round of the playoffs. It's absolutely fantastic. Nothing but drama going into this series. We're going to chat with the voice of the Winnipeg Jets, Dennis Beyak, coming up after the break about what is going on, what kind of series he thinks it's going to be, and of course the 7-game series against the Nashville Predators. If you want a quality broadcast, radio-wise, listen to TSN 1290. Brian Munns, Paul Edmonds, and Dennis Beyak put an absolutely fantastic broadcast. That's all going to start up tomorrow. They start the pregame show at just about 5 o'clock from the studios there, and then the boys from the booth come on at just about 5:40. So if you want a good radio broadcast, that is definitely the one to listen to. We're coming right back with Dennis.
You're listening to the First Row Sports Show, brought to you by Pass the Pop on 215 Main Street North in Dauphin. Whether you want pop, water, juice, or a sweet American chocolate bar, Pass the Pop has you covered. And if they don't have it in stock, they'll order it in. Check them out on Facebook at Pass the Pop Specialty Beverage Company, and don't forget, keep it locked to the First Row Sports Show for your chance to win the monthly draw. And don't forget about Trivia Tuesday, where you can win a $10 gift card to Pass the Pop or anywhere you'd like. More of the First Row Sports Show is coming up.
Joined now by Dennis Beyak, the voice of the Winnipeg Jets on TSN 1290. And Dennis, the Winnipeg Jets advancing to their first ever conference final. First of all, before we get to that series against Vegas, let's sort of talk about Game 7 in Nashville, a 5-1 win. Just your thoughts on what transpired out to be a big win by the Jets organization.
Well, you talk about a team that played to its identity, and I think maybe that's the best way to explain that. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets play a certain style. They play a fast style. They're in your face. They're on the puck. And, you know, at times in this series, you get the counterattack from Nashville, and your game plan doesn't work. Theirs works to perfection, and that's how you end up in a 7-game series. But when it came down to the final game, in Game 7, the Winnipeg Jets certainly played their best game probably of the playoffs, and really they got a couple of breaks early on those 2 goals that saw Pecorine get pulled, and then after that they just kind of played the way that we have seen this team play, you know, throughout the course of the year, and never really gave Nashville much of a chance in the second period. In fact, they kept Nashville to just 6 shots on goal in the second period. Even in the third, when Nashville had 21 shots, a lot of those were from the outside. I think Connor Hellebuyck, who was very solid, probably in the entire game, had to maybe make 5 or 6 big saves, the one off Kyle Turris when it was 3-2. But after that, they locked it down, and a pretty good, very good team effort by the Winnipeg Jets.
Now, going into that game, seeing Rene's struggles on home ice, was the game plan just to throw everything at the net? And you saw those first 2 goals. I don't know if you would call them quality, but they went in the back of the net. Was the game plan just to throw everything at the net?
It was, and their theory behind it is not to score goals. I mean, because you don't think that's going to happen, but it did. Especially the first one by Tyler Myers, second one by Stastny. Yes, sharp angle. It's kind of a rebound. You know, Roman Josi didn't exactly play. I think it was Josi, may have been Ekholm. Didn't exactly play Stastny all that well on the second one. But the idea of it is to kind of create chaos. Throw a puck to the net. You don't know where the rebound is, if there is one. You don't know where the puck goes. Now you've got their defenseman turning, and now you can maybe gain control and set something up in the offensive zone. But, you know, it gets everybody kind of moving, and then it allows the forecheckers to kind of get in and get their thing going. And we saw that, you know, they put Armia back with Lowry and Kopp, and that line, especially in the third period when the Predators were giving it their final push, that line came out on a couple of shifts and really controlled the puck in the offensive zone and got it turned around. But, yeah, that's where it all kind of starts. If they go in like they did last night, that's a bonus. But the idea is to kind of get some chaos going in the offensive zone and let your people go and do what they can do so well.
We sort of talked about heading into the series before the series when Nashville started. Teams almost like to start on the road for game 1 and 2. And, you talk about the pressure on playing on home ice, 15,000 plus screaming and, booing when things don't go well. Do you think playing on the road in game 7 last night benefited the Winnipeg Jets because they didn't have that pressure of playing amazing in front of their home crowd?
It seemed the whole series was like that, Darnell, even from a Nashville standpoint. I mean, it's funny to say it. It was an odd series for the Winnipeg Jets because they won games 1, 3, 5, and 7. I don't know if it was nerves as much at home for these two teams as being able to handle the expectations, because the expectations for the Nashville Predators were at least another run to the Stanley Cup final and maybe even a Stanley Cup. As the series kept going, the expectations kind of changed for the Winnipeg Jets, where they grabbed home ice advantage in game 1. So all of a sudden the expectations were the Jets are so good on home ice that they now are the favorite in the series because they won game 1. And then all of a sudden they're down 3-0 in game 3 of the series, and then they come back and win that one. And now you think, well, they've got Nashville on the ropes, and now the expectations kind of change, and now Nashville. Instead of the Jets going up 3-1, as the expectation was, Nashville comes back and ties it up 2-2. Now the expectations change for them as they regain home ice advantage. They go back there for game 5 and the Jets won, and on it went, where Nashville came in here and won game 6. So I don't know if it was nerves from the crowd inside and outside the building, if it's all the media attention that there was involved in this series and there's going to be more of it in the next series, or if it was simply trying to manage expectations and struggling with that end of it. All the little things kind of played a part in that as well. First goal of the game, how the first goal was scored. Was it a good goal? Was it, as we saw in Game 6 here, where it got waved off and then video review changed it? All those little things played a part. But boy, of all the series that I've been around or seen, this will go down as one of the strangest one. How nobody could win back-to-back games. Pekka Rinne, who was so good in Winnipeg, was tough at, struggled at home, and on it went. And it was a strange series.
A 5-1 win for the Winnipeg Jets in Game 7. TSN 1290's Dennis Beyak joining me on the First Row Sports Show. And Dennis, how much confidence does this give the Winnipeg Jets, knocking off a team who was supposed to win the Cup, if not at least go to the Cup? How much confidence does that give the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, again, we talk about expectations, and that Nashville's going to come in here and say that the Winnipeg Jets are now favored to win the Stanley Cup, and they were the second best team in the league. They knocked off the top team in the league, and they're going to try and throw all the pressure right onto the Winnipeg Jets' doorstep. And then it becomes a matter of how the Winnipeg Jets handle that. And as impressive as they are on the ice, Darnell, how they've handled, and there's been some bumps. There's always bumps in the playoffs. I mean, Nashville had bumps, and they were the best team in the league points-wise. A team that went to the Stanley Cup final last year, and everybody said their experience was going to be the difference. Well, as it turns out, maybe it was in some games, but in Game 7 it wasn't. But the Winnipeg Jets have really done a good job in handling all the other stuff that comes with the Stanley Cup playoffs. And they have to continue to do that because it's just going to get ramped up here even more. The pressure in this city, the expectations, the media coverage, the scrutiny, everything else is just going to get ramped up here as you're down to your Final Four in the National Hockey League, and how they handle that is going to be critical. But I don't think this team lacks confidence, even though you can debate whether in games 4 and 6 here in Winnipeg that was the case. I don't know. I mean, I guess they're the only ones that really know that, but they seem to be, for the most part, a very confident lot.
Heading into the final against, obviously, the Vegas Golden Knights, Marc-Andre Fleury, statistically probably the best goalie so far in the playoffs. He's been fantastic. And Connor Hellebuyck, who has been, I'm sure you have nothing but good things to say from him. Going into that series, do you think this is going to be a low-scoring, tight series from Game 1 to, perhaps even another Game 7 thriller?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as high-scoring as the Nashville series was, and yet who knows? I mean, Connor Hellebuyck just outdueled Pekka Rinne, who's probably going to win the Vezina, and the Jets chased Pekka Rinne 3 times in a 7-game series. Marc-Andre Fleury has been very good for the Vegas Golden Knights. I think the Vegas Golden Knights have a very good defense. This is going to be a fast-played series. You got two teams that like to play the game fast. I think the Jets can defend a little better maybe than what Vegas can, but that's yet to be seen. But there's no doubt Marc-Andre Fleury, you want to talk about experience, and a guy who has been through the Stanley Cup playoffs and has had success in the Stanley Cup playoffs. If that's where it starts for the Golden Knights, and I think it does, they've got a good one there in Marc-Andre Fleury.
Now, I know so many players on the Winnipeg Jets were so good in the series against Nashville, but I want to talk of the duo between Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele. I remember that one goal last night where Scheifele was up against Subban, and then he just sort of, reversed himself, went to the, left side of the net, just where he likes to be, got that perfect pass from Wheeler, then he put it in the back of the net. How important, obviously, is Scheifele and Wheeler going to be if the Jets want to get past the Knights?
Well, Paul Maurice refers to those guys as drivers, and that's what they are. They drive the team, and to see where they are in the playoffs, Mark Scheifele now with 11 goals. Yes, some of them have come empty net, but credit to him to be out there in those situations. But, Paul Stastny's 3 points last night, Paul Stastny's point totals in Game 7s, but I still think the straw that stirs the drink for the Winnipeg Jets is that duo that you just mentioned, that being Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele, because I think they're the guys that every time you need a spark, that's who you kind of look for. They play the power play. They come out and kill penalties at times, and, they usually, by the end of the night, are the big minute eaters on the team, and it kind of goes from there. So you can talk about all the guys, and good to see Kyle Connor get a couple of assists last night after he took probably a penalty that he shouldn't have taken that got Nashville on the scoreboard. But, it's Nick Heeler's had one of his better games, but I agree with you. I still think when you look at the Winnipeg Jets and who's going to lead the way here, it's going to be those two guys, certainly at least up front. On the back end, a lot of it obviously revolves around Dustin Byfuglien, and certainly we've talked about Connor Hellebuyck already.
Now, on a personal level for yourself, if you look back at your whole broadcasting career from junior now to the Winnipeg Jets, where does this run for yourself as far as calling games rank to other teams? I know you've been with the Leafs and all that sorts of thing. Where does this run you're taking with the Jets rank in all of them?
Well, as far as doing play-by-play, this would probably be it. I mean, other than going back to junior days where I did Memorial Cup finals, I've done RBC finals. I was with the Saskatoon Blades when we lost the Memorial Cup final in overtime. That was a difficult one because you're working for the team that came so close to winning it, and yet you try and had to be professional about the way you were handling the broadcast, because you knew that there was people from the Swift Current Broncos who won it. You knew there were fans of their team that were listening. So, World Juniors, certainly the one that in Finland where Finland won, the one that Patrick Laine was involved in. But this is the National Hockey League, and I asked Patrick Laine yesterday about all the big games that he's been in. He didn't even hesitate. He said, this is the most important game of my life, meaning that game last night. He said it's the NHL and nothing compares to the NHL. So certainly, you know what, Darnell, you get caught up in it. I got caught up in it and certainly was excited for them. And there were some nerves from my standpoint. And with Brian Munns and Paul Edmonds on our broadcast, I think all three of us, there was some trepidation. Are they going to be able to handle this? Are we going to move on? But you know what? You feel happy for the organization, because when they made the decision after the 2015 playoffs, when they got swept, to go young and miss the playoffs for a few years, let the young guys develop, let them learn on the job, because that's the way the National Hockey League is going. And right now, the Winnipeg Jets are considered a model franchise. Used to be the Detroit Red Wings on how to build a championship team. Well, I think there's a lot of people looking towards the Winnipeg Jets now, and that's who you feel happy for, because when the contract extensions for Paul Maurice and Kevin Cheveldayoff were announced last year, there was lots of people that questioned that, and that passion is what drives this game, and, good for them and good for the team.
Now, just one more question for you, Dennis. Obviously, it's going to be a crazy crowd in Winnipeg, inside and outside. Are you expecting some Jets fans to be in Vegas at T-Mobile Arena?
Well, I think Vegas is one of those teams that has the ability somehow to, they do it, not how. They all have a way to do it where you can limit tickets to certain areas. We'll maybe get a little more information on that when Vegas comes to town and get talking to some of their people. I don't know how accessible tickets are going to be for those games, whether they are open to the general public. But if they are open to the general public, other than the fact it's during the week, it's Wednesday, Friday, the Jets are down there. So there may not be many Jets fans down there for the Wednesday, but I wouldn't be surprised if tickets are available that you're going to see a real Jets contingent down in Vegas for Game 4 on that Friday night.
Can catch the Jets all conference final long on TSN 1290 with the play-by-play Dennis Beyak. Dennis, thank you so much for joining me today, and best of luck, I guess, on home ice tomorrow night.
Darnell, good chatting. Talk soon. Take care.
Well, that'll just about do her for the First Row Sports Show for Friday, May 11th. Just about June. No, not really. Still 19 days away, but still absolutely gorgeous outside. Thank you so much for tuning into the First Row Sports Show today. And thank you so much to my guest, Dennis Beyak, the voice of the Winnipeg Jets. And don't forget, the Jets and the Golden Knights kick it off all tomorrow from Bell MTS Place in Winnipeg, 6 o'clock puck drop. Don't you forget that. It's going to be absolutely absolute pandemonium in Winnipeg and Bell MTS Place. The Jets trying to continue what has been, I guess you would call it a miracle run, never been to the third round of the postseason. And the Vegas Golden Knights, they're trying to make the Vegas bookies broke. The Winnipeg Jets coming up tomorrow against the Golden Knights at 6 o'clock. Stay tuned for the First Row Sports Show. Coming up on Monday, we'll have a preview of Game 2 between the Winnipeg Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights. And don't forget about Trivia Tuesday. It is very simple. All you got to do is like and share the First Row Sports Show Facebook page, and you're in on a draw. Well, you got to answer a question, but it's usually a pretty simple question if you've seen it before. So stay tuned to the First Row Sports Show Facebook page and get in on the draw. 10 free bucks to pass the popper anywhere you want. You want a gas card, you want a restaurant card, doesn't matter. You could win it. Have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the First Row Sports Show. Check us out on Twitter at First Row Sports Zero and Facebook. Follow the guys on Twitter at It's the Duffy One